In this presentation, we will perform an analysis of the exchange rate between the Australian dollar, or AUD, and the euro. This analysis will discuss our predictions for the currency pair for the next 3 to 6 months. Exchange rates in the Forex market can be analysed based on the economic indicators of the currency's respective countries. The respective country of the AUD is Australia. As the euro is the official currency of 19 countries, its respective country is the Eurozone, a monetary union consisting of these 19 states. Economic indicators used for analysis of the market view are relative interest rates, relative inflation rates, and relative growth rates. Interest rates can represent the cost of borrowing funds, the rate of return from lending, the opportunity cost of holding money, and the time value of money. In the Reserve Bank of Australia's most recent media release, the interest rate was reported at 1.5%. It is anticipated that the present rate will stay the same over the next 3 to 6 months. According to the European Central Bank, the current interest rate is 0% and is expected to remain unchanged in the next 3 to 6 months. One explanation for changes in interest rates is the income effect. The RBA and ECB have left the interest rate unchanged due to limited income growth. The Australian Bureau of Statistics stated the annual change in wage price index from December 2016 to December 2017 as plus 2.1%, and Eurostat recorded the annual wage growth of 1.6% for the same period. Low income growth means that spending does not increase, and as the risk of inflation is very small, there is no need for the central bank to change the interest rate. The inflation effect on interest rates is another explanation for why central banks will keep interest rates constant. Both Australia and the Eurozone currently have low consumer price indexes, in part due to limited wage growth. Limited wage growth will cause the CPI, or inflation, to be low, as there is no great increase in the availability of funds, and so households have no incentive to spend more. The RBA puts current inflation at 1.90%. The ECB has current inflation at 1.10%. With little inflation to encourage increased spending, there is no reason to increase the interest rate. While both Australia and the Eurozone's interest rates remain unchanged, the AUD could depreciate against the euro in the next 3 to 6 months as a result of its higher constant interest rate. Inflation refers to an increase in prices of goods and services within an economy over time. This is measured using the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI. As discussed earlier, the current Australian inflation rate is 1.9%. This is just below the inflation target identified by the Reserve Bank of Australia of between 2 and 3%. In the latest media release by the RBA, an increase in inflation has been forecast to end with the target range at just above 2% in 2018. The Eurozone's current inflation rate of 1.1% is also lower than the European Central Bank's inflation target of below or close to 2%. By the end of 2018, it is expected that the inflation will rise to somewhere around 1.5%, still somewhat below target. The higher Australian rate of inflation means that there is less demand for the AUD in the Eurozone than there is for the euro in Australia. This is because households substitute local goods and services for relatively cheaper options from the euro area. The decrease in demand for the AUD and consequent increase in supply means that the currency will depreciate against the euro. Growth rates represent the growth in an economy in the most recent period. It is measured as the rate of change in a nation's GDP from one year to another. The growth rate in Australia currently sits at 2.4% per the latest release of information from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, whereas the Eurozone growth sits far lower at just 0.6% per the Eurostat's information. The stronger growth rate in Australia suggests that they are performing better in the current economic climate, with an expectation for growth to rise over the next 3 to 6 months. This would ideally bring them in line with targets. The Eurozone similarly expects growth to marginally increase over the long term. However, there is an expectation of the current quarter to experience a small drop to 0.5%. The relative increase in the next period is likely to lead in a reduction in demand for the Australian currency from the Eurozone, as the price will only grow higher and there will be no sufficient growth to justify further imports from Australia. The likely result of this will be a further fall of the Australian dollar against the euro. Currently, the Australian dollar has an exchange rate of 0.63 euros, which displays a slight decrease of 0.04 Australian to euro when analysing the past 6 months. When researching recent indications from the RBA and the European Central Bank, the rate is expected to remain around the same in the next 3 to 6 months, with the chance of a slight depreciation from the AUD.